Today is the 13th of September, and this is the 55th time we are speaking on the Majjhima Nikāya Suttas. Tonight we come to Sutta 133, Mahakaccanabhaddekaratta Sutta, Mahakaccana, and one fortunate attachment. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was living at Rajagaha, in the park of the hot springs. Then when it was dawn, the Venerable Samidi went to the hot springs to bathe his limbs. After bathing, he came up out of the water and stood dressed in one robe, drying his limbs. Then when the night was well advanced, a certain deity of beautiful appearance, who illuminated the whole of the hot springs, approached the Venerable Samidi. Standing at one side, the deity said to him, "Monk, do you remember the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment?" And he replied, "Friend, I do not remember the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment. But friend, do you remember the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment?" "Monk, I too do not remember the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment. But monk, do you remember the stanza of one who has one fortunate attachment?" "Friend, I do not remember the stanza of one who has one fortunate attachment. But friend, do you remember the stanza of one who has one fortunate attachment?" "Monk, I too do not remember the stanza of one who has one fortunate attachment. But monk, learn the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment." "Monk, master the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment." "Monk, remember the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment." "Monk, the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment is beneficial. It belongs to the fundamentals of the holy life." That is what was said by the deity, who thereupon vanished at once. Stop here for a moment. So this deity, it's not mentioned whether it's a Deva or Devi. He is one of those deities who is very keen on the Dhamma, and he knows that this stanzas in this Bhaddekaratta are important, but he also has forgotten the exact words. So he asked the monk to learn it and remember it. Then when the night was over, the Venerable Samidi went to the Blessed One. After paying homage to him, he sat down at one side, told the Blessed One all that had occurred, and said, "It would be good, Venerable Sir, if the Blessed One would teach me the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment." "Then monk, listen and attend closely to what I shall say." "Yes, Venerable Sir," the Venerable Samidi replied. The Blessed One said, "Let not a person revive the past, or on the future build his hopes, for the past has been left behind, and the future has not been reached. Instead, with insight, let him see each presently arisen state. Let him know that and be sure of it, invincibly, unshakably. Today the effort must be made. Tomorrow death may come, who knows? No bargain with mortality can keep him and his hordes away. But one who dwells thus ardently, relentlessly, by day, by night, it is he, the peaceful sage, has said, who has one fortunate attachment." That is what the Blessed One said. Having said this, the Sublime One rose from his seat and went into his dwelling. And soon after the Blessed One had gone, the monks considered, "Now friends, the Blessed One has risen from his seat and gone into his dwelling after giving a summary in brief, without expounding the detailed meaning. Now who will expound this in detail?" Then they considered, "The Venerable Mahakaccana is praised by the teacher and esteemed by his wise companions in the holy life. He is capable of expounding the detailed meaning. Suppose we went to him and asked him the meaning of this." Then the monks went to the Venerable Mahakaccana and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, They sat down at one side and told him what had taken place, adding, "Let the Venerable Mahakaccana expound it to us." The Venerable Mahakaccana replied, "Friends, it is as though a man needing hardwood, seeking hardwood, wandering in search of hardwood, thought that hardwood should be sought for among the branches and leaves of a great tree, standing possessed of hardwood, after he had passed over the root and the trunk. So it is with you, Venerable Sirs, that you think that I should be asked about the meaning of this after you passed the Blessed One by, when you were face to face with the teacher. For knowing, the Blessed One knows. Seeing, he sees. He is vision. He is knowledge. He is the Dhamma. He is the Holy One. He is the sayer, the proclaimer, the elucidator of meaning, the giver of the deathless, the Lord of the Dhamma, the Tathagata. That was the time when you should have asked the Blessed One the meaning. As he told you, so you should have remembered it." Stop here for a moment. This Venerable Mahakaccana is one of those monks who is very good at explaining the Dhamma. Yet you see, he is an Arahant. Yet he told the monks that they should have referred to the Buddha. And you see, he praised the Buddha in such terms. He is vision, he is knowledge, he is Dhamma, he is the Holy One, he is the sayer, the proclaimer, giver of the deathless, Lord of the Dhamma. Actually, he is already an Arahant, so he already knows very well the Dhamma, yet he is very humble. He says, in effect, he's saying, I cannot compare it with the Buddha, you should have asked the Buddha. Then they said, "Surely, friend Kaccana, knowing the Blessed One knows, seeing he sees. He is vision, he is knowledge, he is the Dhamma, he is the Holy One, he is the sayer, the proclaimer, elucidator of meaning, the giver of the deathless, the Lord of the Dhamma, the Tathagata." That was the time when we should have asked the Blessed One the meaning. As he told us, so we should have remembered it. Yet the Venerable Mahakaccana is praised by the teacher and esteemed by his wise companions in the holy life. The Venerable Mahakaccana is capable of expounding the detailed meaning of this summary, given in brief by the Blessed One without expounding the detailed meaning. Let the Venerable Mahakaccana expound it without finding it troublesome. Then listen, friends, and attend closely to what I shall say. "Yes, friend," the monks replied. The Venerable Mahakaccana said, "Friends, when the Blessed One rose from his seat and went into his dwelling after giving a summary in brief, without expounding the detailed meaning, that is, let not a person revive the past, or on the future build his hopes, for the past has been left behind, and the future has not been reached. Instead, with insight, let him see each presently arisen state. Let him know that and be sure of it, invincibly, unshakably. Today the effort must be made. Tomorrow death may come, who knows? No bargain with mortality can keep him and his hordes away. But one who dwells thus ardently, relentlessly, by day, by night, it is he, the peaceful sage has said, who has one fortunate attachment." I understand the detailed meaning of it to be as follows. How, friends, does one revive the past? Thinking, my I was thus in the past, and forms were thus. One's consciousness becomes bound up with desire and lust for that. Because one's consciousness is bound up with desire and lust, one delights in that. When one delights in that, one revives the past. Thinking, my ear was thus in the past, and sounds were thus. Similarly, my nose and odors, my tongue and flavors, my body and tangibles, my mind was thus in the past, and my objects were thus. One's consciousness becomes bound up with desire and lust for that. Because one's consciousness is bound up with desire and lust, one delights in that. When one delights in that, one revives the past. That is how one revives the past. How does one not revive the past? Thinking, my I was thus in the past, and forms were thus. One's consciousness does not become bound up with desire and lust for that. Because one's consciousness is not bound up with desire and lust, one does not delight in that. When one does not delight in that, one does not revive the past. Similarly, thinking, my ear was thus in the past, and sounds were thus. My nose and odors, my tongue and flavors, my body and tangibles, my mind was thus in the past, and mind objects were thus. one's consciousness does not become bound up with desire and lust for that. Because one's consciousness is not bound up with desire and lust, one does not delight in that. When one does not delight in that, one does not revive the past. That is how one does not revive the past. Stop here for a moment. So here, when we compare with the first Bhaddekaratta Sutta, we find that in the first sutta, the Buddha explained this reviving the past in terms of the 5 aggregates, 5 aggregates of attachment, which basically is also body and mind. The 5 aggregates are material form or body, feeling, perception, volition and consciousness, which is basically body and mind. So here, this Arahant Mahakaccana explains it, instead of the 5 aggregates, he explains it in terms of the 6 bases, the 6 sense bases. The internal base is the eye, external base is the forms, and similarly ear and sounds, nose and odors, tongue and flavors, body and tangibles, and mind objects. And for each of these 6 senses, the consciousness is conjured. And so he talks in terms of the 6 sense bases. This shows that, as stated in some suttas, there are some arahants who become liberated through contemplating the 5 aggregates, and there are some become liberated through contemplating the 6 sense bases, and there are some become liberated through contemplating dependent origination, and some become liberated through contemplating, for example, the 4 great elements, etc. How, friends, does one build up hope upon the future, thinking, my I may be thus in the future, and forms may be thus? One sets one's heart on obtaining what has not yet been obtained. Because one sets one's heart thus, one delights in that. When one delights in that, one builds up hope upon the future. Similarly, thinking my ear may be thus in the future, sounds may be thus, my nose and odors, my tongue and flavors, my body and tangibles, my mind may be thus in the future, and mind objects may be thus. One sets one's heart on obtaining what has not yet been obtained. Because one sets one's heart thus, one delights in that. When one delights in that, one builds up hope upon the future. That is how one builds up hope upon the future. How, friends, does one not build up hope upon the future, thinking, my I may be thus in the future, and forms may be thus? One does not set one's heart on obtaining what has not yet been obtained. Because one does not set one's heart thus, one does not delight in that. And one does not delight in that, one does not build up hope upon the future. Similarly, thinking my ear may be thus in the future, sounds may be thus, my nose and odors, my tongue and flavors, my body and tangibles, my mind may be thus in the future, and mind objects may be thus. One does not set one's heart on obtaining not what has not yet been obtained. Because one does not set one's heart thus, one does not delight in that. When one does not delight in that, one does not build up hope upon the future. That is how one does not build up hope upon the future. Sorry for a moment. So here, similarly, for the past and for the future, we should not delight in the eye and the forms, ear and sounds, nose and odors, etc. How is one vanquished in regard to presently arisen states? In regard to the I and forms that are presently arisen, one's consciousness is not bound up with desire and lust for that which is presently arisen. Because one's consciousness is bound up, in regard to the I and forms that are presently arisen, one's consciousness is bound up with desire and lust for that which is presently arisen. Because one's consciousness is bound up with desire and lust, one delights in that. When one delights in that, one is vanquished in regard to presently arisen states. Similarly, in regard to the ear and sounds, nose and odors, tongue and flavors, body intangibles, mind and mind objects that are presently arisen. One's consciousness is bound up with desire and lust for that which is presently arisen. Because one's consciousness is bound up with desire and lust, one delights in that. When one delights in that, one is vanquished in regard to presently arisen states. That is how one is vanquished in regard to presently arisen states. How is one invincible in regard to presently arisen states? In regard to the I and forms that are presently arisen, one's consciousness is not bound up with desire and lust for that which is presently arisen. Because one's consciousness is not bound up with desire and lust, one does not delight in that. When one does not delight in that, one is invincible in regard to presently arisen states. Similarly, in regard to the ear and sounds, nose and odors, tongue and flavors, body intangibles, mind and mind objects that are presently arisen, one's consciousness is not bound up with desire and lust for that which is presently arisen. Because one's consciousness is not bound up with desire and lust, one does not delight in that. When one does not delight in that, one is invincible in regard to presently arisen states. That is how one is invincible in regard to presently arisen states. Friends, when the Blessed One rose from his seat and went into his dwelling, after giving in summary in brief, without expounding the detailed meaning, that is, not a person revived the past, etc., I understand the detailed meaning of this summary to be thus. Now friends, if you wish, go to the Blessed One and ask him about the meaning of this, as the Blessed One explains it to you, so you should remember it. Then the monks, having delighted and rejoiced in the Venerable Mahakaccana's words, rose from their seats and went to the Blessed One. After paying homage to him, they sat down at one side and told the Blessed One all that had taken place after he had left, adding, "Then, Venerable Sir, we went to the Venerable Mahakaccana and asked him about the meaning. The Venerable Mahakaccana expounded the meaning to us with these terms, statements and phrases." And the Buddha said, "Mahakaccana is wise, monks. Mahakaccana has great wisdom. If you had asked me the meaning of this, I would have explained it to you in the same way that Mahakaccana has explained it. Such is its meaning, and so you should remember it." That is what the Blessed One said. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So here you see, the Buddha is saying that if you ask me, I could explain it in the same way as the Venerable Mahakaccana. Meaning there's no difference explaining it in terms of the six sense bases, as in this sutta, or explaining it in terms of the five aggregates, as in the previous sutta. So, in these two instances, the meaning is that don't think about the past in terms of the five aggregates that you had in the past, a body, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. And also, don't run to the future, hoping that you will have such a body, you will have such feelings, you will have such perception, etc. And then just look at the present aggregates, five aggregates, body and mind, and see that they are impermanent, that they are dependently arisen, that they depend on so many conditions, and all these conditions will change. So don't attach to any one of them. You will attach to your body or to your mind. Very soon when it changes, you will suffer when it changes. Because when you attach to it, then you don't want it to change, but it must change. So don't attach to it. So in the same way, in this sutta, it also says, basically, don't think about the past and don't hope for the future. Just see the present. And when you see the present, you can see it in terms of the six sense bases, namely your eye and forms, ear and sounds, nose and odors, tongue and flavors, and body and tangibles, and mind and thoughts. So see that they are all dependently arisen and fleeting, impermanent. Don't cling to them. Whatever forms, whatever sounds you hear, smells, taste, touch and thoughts, all are impermanent. Even whatever beautiful forms you see, if you attach to them, they are going to change. There is a extremely striking simile the Buddha gave about forms. I think in Majjhima Nikāya number 13 or something like that, one of the earlier Majjhima Nikāya suttas, where the Buddha said about being attached to forms. When you appreciate forms, the most beautiful body you can see, like somebody of the opposite sex, and they are sweet 16, in the prime of beauty, but the same beautiful girl is 80 or 90 or 100 years old, and it's completely different already. So hair white or gone, the teeth also gone, wrinkle, hunchback, tottering, weak, frail, totally like a different person. But it's the same person just a few years later. Or that person might be sick, stricken with cancer, lying on her own shit and urine, have to help out by others, fed by others, washed by others and all that. That time, she is not so beautiful already. Or she turns into a corpse a few years later, bloated, stinking, and whatever your attachment you have for her, all gone when you see the corpse. So Buddha is telling us to remember one day that beautiful girl only to turn into all these things, so don't attach. So whether it's our own body or other person's bodies, don't attach. All is impermanent. So don't cling to the past, don't think of the future, and look at the present. Everything is moving so fast. If we look at our photo 5 years ago and look at our photo now, so much difference. So another 5 years' time, it'll be very different again. In fact, in 5 years from now, I don't know how many of us won't be here already on this earth. Okay, now we come to Sutta 134, Lomasakangiyabhaddekaratta Sutta, Lomasakangya and one fortunate attachment. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Now on that occasion, the Venerable Lomasakangya was living in the Sakyan country at Kapilavatthu in Nigroda's park. Then when the night was well advanced, a young deity of Chandana, a young deity of beautiful appearance who illuminated the whole of Nigroda's park, approached the Venerable Lomasakangya. Standing at one side, Chandana, the young deity, said to him, "Monk, do you remember the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment?" "Friend, I do not remember the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment." "But friend, do you remember the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment?" "Monk, I too do not remember the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment." "But monk, do you remember the stanza of one who has one fortunate attachment?" "Friend, I do not remember the stanza of one who has one fortunate attachment." "But friend, do you remember the stanza of one who has one fortunate attachment?" "Monk, I remember the stanza of one who has one fortunate attachment." "But friend, in what way do you remember the stanza of one who has one fortunate attachment?" "Monk, once the Blessed One was living among the gods of the heaven of the 33 on the red marble stone at the root of the Parichataka tree. There the Blessed One recited the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment to the gods of the heaven of the 33. Let not a person revive the past or on the future build his hopes, for the past has been left behind and the future has not been reached. Instead, with insight, let him see each presently arisen state. Let him know that and be sure of it, invincibly, unshakably. Today the effort must be made. Tomorrow death may come, who knows? No bargain with mortality can keep him and his hordes away. But one who dwells thus ardently, relentlessly, by day, by night, it is he, the peaceful sage, has said, who has one fortunate attachment. Monk, I remember the stanza of one who has one fortunate attachment thus. Monk, learn the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment. Monk, master the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment. Monk, remember the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment. Monk, the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment is beneficial. It belongs to the fundamentals of the holy life. That is what was said by Chandana, the young deity, who thereupon vanished at once. Stop here for a moment. So you see the previous sutta and this sutta, these two monks, they were practicing the forest, and this deity comes to them to discuss the Dhamma. The fact that they can see the deity and talk to the deity actually means that they have attained 4 jhanas. So they strove very hard, they have attained 4 jhanas. And this heavenly eye open, they have this psychic power. That's why they can see and talk to the devas. Not all people have this ability, even monks, very few. So this, the fact that this Chandana, the deity, can remember these stanzas shows that he is one who is very interested in the Dhamma, very keen in the Dhamma. It's possible he may have been a monk in a previous life. Then when the night was over, the Venerable Lomasakangiyabhaddekaratta set his resting place in order, and taking his bowl and outer robe, set out to wander by stages to Savatthi. He at length arrived at Savatthi and went to the Blessed One in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. After paying homage to him, he sat down at one side, told the Blessed One all that had occurred, and said, "It would be good, Venerable Sir, if the Blessed One would teach me the summary and exposition of one who has one fortunate attachment." Monk, do you know that young deity? No, Venerable Sir. Monk, that young deity is named Chandana. He heeds the Dhamma, gives it attention, engages it with all his mind, hears it with eager ears. So monk, listen and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, Venerable Sir. The Venerable Lomasakangiyabhaddekaratta replied to the Blessed One. The Blessed One said this, "Let not a person revive the past, etc." And he repeated the whole sutta as in sutta number 131. That is what the Blessed One said. The Venerable Lomasakangiyabhaddekaratta was satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So here we won't repeat the sutta. It's exactly what we heard before. But you see, the Buddha says that this Chandana, he heeds the Dhamma, gives it attention, engages it with all his mind, hears it with eager ears. These are characteristics of a Sotapanna. If a person has this kind of interest in the Dhamma, that he heeds the Dhamma, every time the Dhamma is spoken, he pays attention, engages it with all his mind. That means he pays attention 100%. Hears it with eager ears, very happy to hear. This type of person only can attain stream entry. If a person, when he has the opportunity to hear the Dhamma, is not so interested, talk and all these things, then it's not possible to attain stream entry. Only certain people, they have this one, is called this San Ken, Sien Kin, have this affinity with the Dhamma, then such a person, when he hears the Dhamma, he will be extremely glad. Okay, now we come to Sutta 135, Culakammavibhanga Sutta, the shorter exposition of karma or action. This is a very important sutta concerning karma vipaka, the very, very important sutta. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Then the Brahmin student, Subha, Todeya's son, went to the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down at one side and asked the Blessed One, "Master Gotama, what is the cause and condition why human beings are seen to be inferior and superior? For people are seen to be short-lived and long-lived, sickly and healthy, ugly and beautiful, uninfluential and influential, poor and wealthy, low-born and high-born, stupid and wise. What is the cause and condition, Master Gotama, why human beings are seen to be inferior and superior?" And the Buddha said, "Student, beings are owners of their action, heirs of their action. They originate from their actions, are bound to their actions, have their actions as their refuge. It is action that distinguishes beings as inferior and superior. Stop here for a moment. Here, action is a translation for kamma. Kamma is intentional action that can be done through the body, speech, and mind. So these few things the Buddha says, owners of the kamma, heirs to the kamma, etc., is what we chant every day. Kamma sakomi, kamma dayado, kamma yoni, kamma bandhu, kamma patisarana. This one. So this Brahmin student Subha is asking the Buddha why people in this world can be seen to be so different. Some have good qualities, some have bad qualities. It's only an intelligent person will think, will question why people must be like that. Suppose you are born and you have a short life, maybe at a young age you have cancer, or all your life you are sick, or you're born ugly, or you're born into a poor family where it's so hard to find a living, or you're born stupid. Then you have reason to ask, why should I be born like that? Then you might want to complain if you didn't know that it's your own fault, that you inherit what you did from the past. So that's why the Buddha says that beings are owners of their actions, heirs to their actions. We inherit our actions, that's why we are born in these different ways. And he said, I do not understand in detail the meaning of Master Gautama's statement, which he spoke in brief, without expounding the meaning in detail. It would be good if Master Gautama would teach me the Dhamma so that I might understand in detail the meaning of Master Gautama's statement. Then student, listen and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, sir, the Brahmin student Subha replied. The Blessed One said, Here, student, some man or woman kills living beings and is murderous, bloody-handed, given to blows and violence, merciless to living beings. Because of performing and undertaking such action on the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a state of deprivation, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, even in hell. But if on the dissolution of the body after death, he does not reappear in a state of deprivation, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, in hell, but instead comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is short-lived. That is the way, student, that leads to short life. Namely, one kills living beings and is murderous, bloody-handed, given to blows and violence, merciless to living beings. But here, student, some man or woman, abandoning the killing of living beings, abstains from killing living beings, with rod and weapon laid aside, gentle and kindly, he abides compassionate to all living beings. Because of performing and undertaking such action on the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. But if on the dissolution of the body after death, he does not reappear in a happy destination in the heavenly world, but instead comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is long-lived. This is the way, student, that leads to long life, namely abandoning the killing of living beings. One abstains from killing living beings. With rod and weapon laid aside, gentle and kindly, one abides compassionate to all living beings. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha says that if a person frequently kills, murderous, bloody-handed, given to blows and violence, merciless, such a person normally would go to hell. But sometimes, if for some reason, because of maybe some supporting karma, or maybe at the moment of dying, he thought of some good karma, and he happens to be born in the human realm, then he is short-lived, just like some children. They are born when they are 1 year old or 2 years old or 3 years old. They get cancer, leukemia, and then their life will end. But on the other hand, if a person is compassionate and does not kill living beings, then he will have long life. You can find some people with very long life. Here, students, some man or woman is given to injuring beings with a hand, with a cloth, with a stick, or with a knife, Because of performing and undertaking such action on the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a state of deprivation, etc. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is sickly. This is the way, student, that leads to sickliness or sickness. Namely, one is given to injuring beings with the hand, with a cloth, with a stick or with a knife. But here, student, some man or woman is not given to injuring beings with the hand, with a cloth, with a stick or with a knife. Because of performing and undertaking such action on the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a happy destination. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is healthy. This is the way, student, that leads to health. Namely, one is not given to injuring beings with the hand, with a cloth, with a stick, or with a knife. Stop here for a moment. So here, some people, they are violent in nature. What we call ngao ching, gu khe, easily stirred up to violence. Such people, because they harm others, they beat others with a cloth, with a hand, with a knife, etc. Then injure others, make others sick. Then they also become very sickly when they come into the human rebirth. You can see some people, their health is very bad from the day they are born until they die. On the other hand, those who don't injure others, you find some people in the world are extremely fit. You see some of these footballers, these people who compete in the Olympics. Strange, you think, how come they are so fit? Here, students, some man or woman is of an angry and irritable character. Even when criticized a little, he is offended, becomes angry, hostile and resentful, and displays anger, hate and bitterness. Because of performing and undertaking such action, he reappears in a state of deprivation. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is ugly. This is the way, student, that leads to ugliness. Namely, one is of an angry and irritable character and displays anger, hate and bitterness. But here, student, some man or woman is not of an angry and irritable character. Even when criticized a little, he is not offended, does not become angry, hostile and resentful, and does not display anger, hate and bitterness. Because of performing and undertaking such action, he reappears in a happy destination. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is beautiful. This is the way, student, that leads to being beautiful. Namely, one is not of an angry and irritable character, and does not display anger, hate and bitterness. Stop here for a moment. There are some people very bad temper, easily blows up, becomes angry, hostile, resentful. Such people, when they are angry, they have a fierce face, and this fierce face is not a beautiful face, it's an ugly face. If they do that constantly every day, it sets this pattern of the face, so that next time they are born, they are ugly. On the other hand, there are some people, they have a very pleasant character. Even when you say something to annoy them, they just smile and laugh. Such people are very sweet, so they are born very sweet. That's why we say in Malay, mukha manis, sweet face. Also, like in English, you say some people are called sugar, because they are so sweet like sugar. Here, students, some man or woman is envious, one who envies, resents, and begrudges the gains, honor, respect, reverence, salutations, and veneration received by others. Because of performing and undertaking such action, he reappears in a state of deprivation. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is uninfluential. This is the way, student, that leads to being uninfluential. Namely, one is envious. One is envious, resentful, begrudges the gains, honor, respect, salutations, veneration received by others. But here, students, some man or woman is not envious, one who does not envy, resent and begrudge the gains, honor, respect, reverence, salutations and veneration received by others. Because of performing and undertaking such action, he reappears in a happy destination. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is influential. This is the way, student, that leads to being influential. Namely, one is not envious towards the gains, honor, respect, reverence, salutations and veneration received by others. Stop here for a moment. So some people, they have a very small heart. And because of that, when people get honor, respect, gains means like coming to a lot of money, property, etc. This person is resentful, is jealous. So such a person, because he's small-hearted, next time he comes back to the human realm, then he is uninfluential, born into a poor family, and even when he grows up, he's of no account. Nobody knows him, nobody wants to know him. On the other hand, if a person is big-hearted, when he sees others becoming rich, or have a lot of property, or have a lot of respect, I guess some title, Dato or something, he's not jealous, he's not resentful, he's happy with others. Such a person, when he comes back, he's influential in life. Everybody likes him. He's an influential person. Here, students, a man or woman does not give food, drink, clothing, carriages, garlands, scents, unguents, beds, dwelling and lamps to recluses or Brahmins. Because of performing and undertaking such action, he reappears in a state of deprivation. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is poor. This is the way, student, that leads to poverty. Namely, one does not give food, drinks, clothing, carriages, garlands, scents, unguents, beds, dwelling, and lamps to recluses or Brahmins. But here, students, a man or woman gives food, drinks, clothing, bedding, dwelling, etc. to recluses or Brahmins. Because of performing and undertaking such action, he reappears in a happy destination. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is wealthy. This is the way, student, that leads to wealth. Namely, one gives food, drinks, clothing, beds, dwelling, etc. to recluses or Brahmins. Stop here for a moment. So if a person is generous, gives to others what others need, then it's easy to come back to great wealth. When he comes back as a human being, he is born in a wealthy family, or even if he's not born into a wealthy family, when he works, then he becomes very wealthy. And here is mentioned, he gives all these things to recluses or Brahmins, meaning monks or ascetics, because when a person does charity, if the person he gives to is virtuous, then the gift is more meritorious. There's greater blessings. And also if the giver himself is virtuous, is also very meritorious. Also the Buddha mentioned in some sutta that when a person gives, he should be very happy. Before giving he should be happy. While giving also he should be very happy. And after giving also he should be very happy. And because of this happiness, when the wealth comes back to him, he will be very happy and enjoy the wealth. Here, students, a man or woman is obstinate and arrogant. He does not pay homage to one who should receive homage, does not rise up for one in whose presence he should rise up, does not offer a seat to one who deserves a seat, does not make way for one for whom he should make way, and does not honor, respect, revere, and venerate one who should be honored, respected, revered, and venerated. Because of performing and undertaking such action, he reappears in a state of deprivation. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is low-born. This is the way, student, that leads to low birth. Namely, one is obstinate and arrogant, and does not honor, respect, revere, and venerate one who should be honored, respected, revered, and venerated. But here, student, some man or woman is not obstinate and arrogant. He pays homage to one who should receive homage, rises up for one in whose presence he should rise up, offers a seat to one who deserves a seat, makes way for one for whom he should make way, and honors, respects, reveres, and venerates one who should be honored, respected, revered, and venerated. Because of performing and undertaking such action, he reappears in a happy destination. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is high born. This is the way, student, that leads to high birth. Namely, one is not obstinate and arrogant, etc., and honors, respects, reveres, and venerates one who should be honored, respected, revered, and venerated. Stop here for a moment. In this world, we can see different people are born in different states. Some are born in the lowest level of society, where the family is poor and looked down by others. On the other hand, you can see some people, they are born maybe into a royal family, becomes a prince or a princess, and even have a chance to become the king or the queen. So why so much difference? This is the reason. It's strange to say, sometimes you can see people come from very low level of society, and you would expect them to be very humble, but strangely enough, you see some of them still very arrogant, even they are born in a very low, because of this habit from the past life, being arrogant, not willing to respect others. Even when they are born into a very low level of society, they still act very arrogant. Habit is still there. Here, students, a man or woman does not visit a recluse or a Brahmin and ask, "Prabhu sir, what is wholesome? What is unwholesome? What is blamable? What is blameless? What should be cultivated? What should not be cultivated? What kind of action will lead to my harm and suffering for a long time? What kind of action will lead to my welfare and happiness for a long time?" Because of performing and undertaking such action, he reappears in a state of deprivation. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is stupid. This is the way, student, that leads to stupidity. Namely, one does not visit a recluse or Brahmin and ask such questions. But here, student, some man or woman visits a recluse or a Brahmin and asks, "Prabhu sir, what is wholesome? What is unwholesome? What is blamable? What is blameless? What should be cultivated? What should not be cultivated, etc.? What kind of action will lead to my welfare and happiness for a long time?" Because of performing and undertaking such action, he reappears in a happy destination. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is wise. This is the way, student, that leads to wisdom. Namely, one visits a recluse or Brahmin and asks such questions. Stop here for a moment. You see here, the Buddha says, the way to wisdom is to ask these type of questions, what is wholesome, what is unwholesome, what is blamable, what is blameless, what should be cultivated, what should not, what kind of karma will lead to my harm, what kind of karma will lead to my welfare. In other words, all these questions are concerned the Dhamma. So if a person is interested in the Dhamma, he learns things that are pertinent to your well-being, which are the most important as far as you are concerned. This is the way that leads to wisdom. And it's not asking, like for example, other questions like who's the most popular actor now, who's the most beautiful actress, who is the fastest man in the world, or questions about science or general knowledge. But it is questions about the Dhamma. These are important things that we should know in the world concerning karma vipaka and all these things. So if a person is not interested in the Dhamma, he will be born stupid. In other words, if he doesn't know the Dhamma, he will conduct himself not in accordance with Dhamma, so he might be reborn in the animal realm. or the hell realm, or the ghost realm. Whereas if a person, he knows the Dhamma, he knows what is wholesome, what is unwholesome, etc. Then he conducts himself according to Dhamma, and he will get a good rebirth. Such is a wise person. Thus, student, the way that leads to short life makes people short-lived. The way that leads to long life makes people long-lived. The way that leads to sickliness makes people sickly. The way that leads to health makes people healthy. The way that leads to ugliness makes people ugly. The way that leads to being beautiful makes people beautiful. The way that leads to being uninfluential makes people uninfluential. The way that leads to being influential makes people influential. The way that leads to poverty makes people poor. The way that leads to wealth makes people wealthy. The way that leads to low birth makes people low born. The way that leads to high birth makes people high born. The way that leads to stupidity makes people stupid. The way that leads to wisdom makes people wise. Beings are owners of their actions, student, heirs of their actions. They originate from their actions. They are born from their actions now. Are bound from their actions. Have their actions as their refuge. It is action that distinguishes beings as inferior and superior. When this was said, the Brahmin student Subha, Tudeya's son, said to the Blessed One, "Magnificent Master Gotama, magnificent Master Gotama. Master Gotama has made the Dhamma clear in many ways, as though he were turning upright what had been overturned, revealing what was hidden, showing the way to one who was lost, or holding up a lamp in the dark for those with eyesight to see for. I go to Master Gotama for refuge, and to the Dhamma, and to the Sangha of monks. Let Master Gotama remember me as a lay follower who has gone to him for refuge for life." That's the end of the sutta. So you see this last part now. This Subha is a son of Tudeya. Tudeya is mentioned in the previous sutta as one of the very prominent Brahmins, wealthy and very knowledgeable Brahmins. And this Subha, after Tudeya's son, Subha, after learning the Dhamma from the Buddha, he took refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. That means he became a Buddhist. So the Buddha, during his time, led many people from different religions into Buddhism. So I stop here for tonight. If you have any things to ask or to discuss, you can discuss.
Question is, when we see all the natural disasters in the world, when floods, rainstorms, earthquakes, because of the amount of past life of these organizations, that they have come to such a destination.
If you say these natural disasters, I believe these natural disasters have occurred all the time in the world. If we go back into the past, we find, for example, like now we're comparing tsunami. We think tsunami is terrible, but years ago, you had these volcanoes erupting, like Krakatoa in Indonesia many years ago erupted. They had also caused a tsunami, except that people have forgotten about it. And there were periods which were worse than what is happening now. For example, the dinosaurs were wiped out from the face of the earth because of this calamity. So it has happened all the time. For example, you look into the history of China, there's so much suffering, much worse than now. So what we are experiencing now is very mild compared to before. So don't think it is due to karma. The world is such, the Buddha says, because of impermanence, the world is suffering. So that's the nature of the world. You cannot change the nature of the world. All you can change is your own self. When you change yourself and you progress in the Dhamma, you become a happy man. No matter what happens outside, you are happy.
They were killed, or they were born into such a state, in such a situation, where this sort of things occurs. But we in Malaysia, we are very fortunate. We don't have all these about karma, or is it just because that we were born about we say we don't know anything?
It's a combination sometimes. And if you understand the working of karma, you know that even when disasters occur, if your karma is good, you won't suffer so much as somebody whose karma is worse. But if a particular place they frequently suffer and suffer a lot, then it could be that their karma is bad. So don't think about this. It's not so important. Okay, can we end here?